Welcome to Twisted Truths, where betrayal meets brutal payback, and where the most unexpected twists expose what people are really capable of. This story isn't just shocking, it's personal. My name is Jim Mercer. I'm 44 years old, divorced, and up until 4 weeks ago, I was the Director of Client Development at Halston Freight Partners. 10 years. That's how long I gave that company, long days, sleepless nights, and years where the office lights saw more of me than my own family did. I built my reputation the old-fashioned way. I earned it. From the day I walked into Halston with nothing but an Army logistics background and a head full of ambition, I started stacking wins. Not by schmoozing or throwing around buzzwords, but by showing up, every single damn time. When a major supplier's shipment got stuck in customs, I drove 5 hours across state lines to cut a deal with a distributor and keep their factory running. When a snowstorm shut down half the Midwest, I rerouted cargo through private terminals using favors I'd banked over years. I turned clients into loyal partners. Friends, even. So when I flew back early from Houston last month after personally locking in the largest freight deal in our firm's history, $14.2 million over 20 months, I expected at least a nod of respect. Instead, I walked straight into a knife fight. They called it a strategic vision alignment meeting. Cute, right? It was 3:02 p.m. Thursday. I still had my jacket slung over my chair and road dust on my boots when the boardroom door closed behind me. A dozen faces sat around the table, all stiff smiles and colder eyes. Across from me sat Ron Bexley, our chairman. The same man who, 5 years ago, toasted me at the company retreat for dragging Halston out of the regional gutter and into the global arena. Now he wouldn't even make eye contact. To his right was David Crane, our CFO, scrolling through his tablet like he didn't have a damn thing to do with what was coming. And to his left was the newcomer. Oliver Dane. 32. Harvard. Son of a legacy shipping family from the East Coast. Polished. Smirking. I'll keep this brief, Ron began. Jim, we're grateful for everything you've built here. Truly. But the board has unanimously agreed it's time to transition the company's client relationships to someone with deeper industry access. Deeper industry access. I just stared. You mean someone with a famous last name? I asked, voice level. Ron cleared his throat. This isn't personal. That phrase should be outlawed. It's always personal. Every damn time. Ollie will be stepping into your role as director effective Monday, he continued, ignoring the way my jaw clenched. We'll discuss transition logistics shortly. Oliver extended his hand like we were old friends meeting for drinks. Big shoes to fill, Jim. I hope I can count on your help getting up to speed. I didn't shake his hand. I didn't say a word. I just stood up, nodded once, and walked out of that room with my spine intact. By the time the elevator hit the ground floor, I already knew I'd been played. This wasn't a hasty decision. This had been orchestrated. Thought out. I'd been gradually iced out of client meetings the past few weeks, told it was better optics to let Oliver handle international prospects. My assistant, Cindy, who'd worked beside me for 7 years, had gone quiet lately. She knew. They all did. They had replaced me before I even landed the Houston deal. And the worst part? I had no damn idea how deep this betrayal would go. I wish I could tell you I walked out of Halston that day with my head held high and a clear plan for the future. But that would be a lie. I spent the next 2 days staring at the ceiling of my apartment, still in my Houston suit. My phone buzzed non-stop, calls from clients, a couple from friends who had heard something was up, even a message from Ron, we'd love for you to help with the transition over the next 10 days. Transition. I couldn't tell if I wanted to punch something or laugh. By Saturday morning, I finally peeled myself off the couch. I sat down at my desk, opened the laptop, and stared at a blank document titled, Next Steps. For 10 years, I'd had a clear objective. Bring in business. Keep it. Build something. Now. I couldn't even write a bullet point. I poured a drink at 10 a.m. Don't judge me. You've probably never had your life ripped out from under you by people who toasted you at Christmas parties. That afternoon, I drove by the office. Not to go in, just to see it. And that's when I saw it. Oliver's BMW. Parked in my reserved spot. I sat there for a long time watching employees walk in and out of the building like nothing had changed. Like I was just another ghost in the parking lot. By Monday, Halston's LinkedIn page posted the announcement. We're thrilled to welcome Oliver Dane as our new Director of Client Development. With a legacy of strategic excellence and unmatched industry insight, he'll be guiding our partnerships into a bold new era. No mention of me. Not even a thank you. I wasn't just replaced, I was erased. Later that night, I met my old assistant Cindy for drinks. She was hesitant to meet, and I understood why. Jim, she started, setting down her glass. I didn't know the whole story. They kept everything compartmentalized. I swear. You knew something was coming, I said flatly. She nodded, looking guilty. HR had me start prepping onboarding materials for Oliver 3 weeks ago. I thought you were getting promoted or going to corporate. Ron said it was a restructure. I just nodded. Couldn't even be angry at her. She was just trying to survive. We all were. They're planning to poach your accounts, she added quietly. Oliver's been working with Ron behind the scenes for months. That Houston deal. He already contacted the client. That stopped me cold. What? Yeah. They're pitching a refreshed approach to partnership. I overheard a strategy call. They weren't just firing me, they were feeding on what I built. I barely slept that night. Not because of the betrayal itself, but because I started to realize what I'd lost. Do you know how hard it is to start over in your 40s in this industry? It's not like your resume means what it used to. Corporate loyalty is a fairy tale. No one wants a veteran leader. They want someone they can shape, exploit, or replace. I thought about my father, retired military. He'd always told me, Jim, build something with your hands. Then, even if they try to take it, they can't take your skill. But what do you do when they take your relationships? What do you do when they twist your own reputation into a weapon against you? Because that's what they were doing. I found out Tuesday morning that at least 2 of my clients who had shaken my hand and thanked me for years, were being told by Halston's legal team that I had violated internal policy by misrepresenting contract authority. Which was a lie. But a convenient one. One of my longtime clients, Jamie Odell from Pike Rail Services, sent me a short message that broke me. Jim. They said you might be under investigation for breach of contract terms. I'm sorry. We can't take the risk. You've been great. Really. Under investigation. I had never been accused of anything in my life, not in the army, not at Halston, not in any business I ran. But now they were seeding doubt in every room I once commanded. I had nothing. No job. No income. No company credit card. No medical insurance. And worst of all, no voice. They were controlling the narrative. I was the problem. The overzealous relic who didn't adapt to the new model. The guy who got too close to clients and wasn't strategic enough. I didn't leave the apartment for 2 more days. I stopped answering the phone. And when my ex-wife called, probably because she'd seen the LinkedIn update, I didn't pick up. That's when I realized something terrifying. They hadn't just fired me. They had buried me. And no one was coming to dig me out. The turning point came not with some lightning bolt of inspiration, but a knock. It was Janet. She'd been my right hand for nearly a decade, and after I was let go, she'd stayed silent. I figured they'd either gotten to her or she just didn't want to get involved. Either way, I understood. But when I opened the door that Thursday afternoon, and she stood there holding a plain manila folder, I knew she had something to say. "I wasn't going to come," she said softly. "But you need to see this." I let her in. We sat at the kitchen counter where I'd once scribbled client call notes and delivery schedules on napkins. She slid the folder across to me like it was radioactive. "Before they locked me out of the system, I made copies. I just had a feeling," she said. I opened it, and my heart started racing. Inside were internal emails, meeting memos, and project documents. But more than that, they told a story. One I hadn't been allowed to see. There it was, plain as day. A meeting dated 5 weeks before I landed the Houston deal, titled, Client Transfer Strategy, Phase 1. Ron. Oliver. Legal. Compliance. Marketing. They were all on it. Agenda points included: target transition of legacy clients to OD. Downplay JM contributions in public-facing materials. Initiate policy review for client handling methods, in prep for narrative control if questioned. Set up preemptive legal language around potential non-compete breach accusations. I nearly dropped the folder. They had planned this. Not just my firing, but the dismantling of everything I built. They were plotting how to reshape my narrative before I even closed the Houston deal. That deal wasn't the final proof of my worth, it was the last nail in the coffin. They let me land it, just to hand it off to Oliver like a gift basket. But the worst part? Janet leaned in and pointed to the last page of the packet. It was an audio transcript. Labeled, Internal Briefing, Board Review. I read it once. Then twice. "Ron, Jim's useful. No doubt about it. But he's not scalable. Clients like him too much, it makes us vulnerable. Oliver, my father had this problem too. Legacy relationships are sentimental. Not strategic. Ron, exactly. We need institutional trust, not individual dependency. That Houston deal, he'll land it. Let him. Oliver, and then we take it. Take it. That wasn't business strategy. That was theft. And I had the receipts. I sat there, jaw tight, rage crawling under my skin like fire ants. The betrayal was bad enough, but this was betrayal with a blueprint. They had studied me like prey. Isolated my strengths. Weaponized them. And then pulled the trigger. They didn't just steal your job, Janet said, voice low. They stole your reputation. They're trying to make sure you can't come back. And suddenly it clicked. Everything that had happened, the LinkedIn posts, the whispered violations, the clients turning cold overnight, was a preemptive strike. I wasn't just a threat to Oliver. I was a threat to the system that propped him up. A system where boardroom connections mattered more than field results. Where inherited privilege trumped earned loyalty. They didn't fire me because I failed. They fired me because I succeeded outside their control. That night, I didn't drink. I didn't mope. I printed everything from that folder and laid it out on the floor like a crime scene. Because it was. And I was going to make sure everyone involved paid dearly for thinking they could erase me. Revenge isn't rage. It's precision. It's the silence before the fall. The moment you stop yelling and start calculating. That's where I was now. Done being angry. Now I was methodical. I sat in my home office for 2 days straight with a whiteboard, the folder Janet gave me, and every client contract I still had in hard copy. I studied them like battle maps. Step 1, expose their lies. Step 2, undermine their leverage. Step 3, take back what was mine, and more. But I couldn't do it alone. So I made 2 calls. The first was to Tom Morales, a procurement VP over at Copperline Steel. He was one of my earliest clients, and more than that, he was one of the few people in this industry who understood loyalty. "Jim," he said, picking up. "You finally ready to take off the gloves?" "More than ready," I said. "But I need a controlled opening shot." I explained everything, the folder, the transcript, the way Halston had moved to sabotage me and control the narrative. Tom didn't even pause. "We'll terminate our Halston contract by Friday. Just send me something official to put in front of legal." One down. The second call was bigger. I dialed Velocity Freight Solutions, Halston's most bitter rival in the regional market. "Hi," I told the receptionist. "Can you put me through to Michael Santos? Tell him Jim Mercer's ready to talk." Michael was the type of CEO who didn't believe in fancy titles. He picked up on the second ring and said, "I was wondering when you'd call." We met the next day in a quiet coffee shop off Lincoln Street. Just us, 2 black coffees, and a legal pad between us. "Before we get into it," he said, "tell me what you want." "I want to bring in $15 million in contracts," I said. "And I want 25% equity to do it." He raised an eyebrow. "And autonomy," I added. "I don't report to anyone. I build the team. My way." He leaned back. "You don't want a job. You want a war." "No," I said. "I want justice. The war is just collateral." I showed him the documents. The emails. The memo about replacing me. The internal transcript. Michael stared at them, quiet for a long time. "You know they'll sue the second you start pulling clients." "I'm counting on it," I said. Because I wasn't just planning to poach clients. I was planning to expose them. By the following week, I had set up a shell firm, Falcon Strategies LLC, as an intermediary. It gave me legal cover while I helped Velocity rebuild a strategic acquisition pipeline. I didn't just go after clients, I went after partners. Vendors. Carriers. Warehouse crews. I knew where Halston stored their redundancies. I built their routing architecture. I knew where the vulnerabilities were, and I fed that data to Velocity's ops team like ammunition. Meanwhile, I drafted my own legal plan, carefully. I didn't violate any non-compete clause, because Halston never made me sign one. Their arrogance, their need to appear trusting, became my first weapon. I began contacting old clients one by one, never promising them a better deal, just the same loyalty I had always shown. I let the evidence speak for itself. Some were scared. Others were furious. And a few were waiting for the chance to jump ship the second they had an excuse. I gave them that excuse. The last phase of the plan was public. I gave an anonymous tip, complete with digital documents, to Logistics Industry Weekly, a niche but well-respected journal that often reported on internal shakeups and corporate misconduct. They ran a piece called "Client Dependency or Sabotage?" Inside the quiet ousting of Halston Freight's top director. It blew up faster than I expected. By the next Monday, Oliver was forced to release a statement denying any wrongdoing. But the damage was already done. People were asking questions. The story had legs. Because the one thing people in this business hate more than risk, is scandal. The first domino fell on a Tuesday. Copperline Steel issued a formal termination letter to Halston and signed a new deal with Velocity by Friday. The contract value? $3.2 million over 12 months. Not just a massive loss for Halston, but a very public one. I didn't even need to say a word. People noticed. The second client was trickier, Redmark Equipment Group. Their VP, Linda Cho, had been hesitant at first. "Jim," she told me over Zoom, "we loved working with you, but your company's got some baggage now." I didn't argue. I just sent her the email chain Janet had handed me, the one where Oliver called me a fossil with handshake values, not strategy. 2 hours later, she called back. Let's draft a transition plan. That was $2.8 million more in active losses for Halston. Halston was hemorrhaging, and I was cutting every vein they'd exposed. By the end of week 2, 5 clients had switched. 1 more was in review. All of them, combined, just shy of $9 million in contracts. Velocity's phones were ringing off the hook. And then the legal threat started. A courier showed up at my door with a thick envelope marked urgent. Inside was a letter from Halston's legal team accusing me of unlawful solicitation, misuse of confidential information, and intentional disruption of contractual relationships. They were suing for $12 million in damages. I laughed. I actually laughed. They were bleeding out in their tower and trying to plug the wound with paper. I called my attorney, a woman named Serena Whitmore. Sharp, aggressive, no patience for corporate bullies. She flipped through the documents and snorted. This isn't a lawsuit. This is a tantrum. They'll try to use the press to scare clients, I said. Let them, she replied. They'll regret it. And she was right. Because 2 days later, Logistics Industry Weekly followed up with a new headline. Halston Freight accused of sabotage, whistleblower reveals internal scheme against former exec. The documents I leaked anonymously. They published them in full. Emails. Board transcripts. The strategy memo outlining how I would be strategically phased out after landing the Houston contract. Even worse, the article named names, Ron Bexley, Oliver Dane. And it quoted former employees. Including Janet. Including Cindy. The article exploded across LinkedIn. Comment threads turned into bonfires. Other mid-level managers from Halston started posting stories. They did the same thing to our West Coast VP last year. They offered me a promotion, then gave it to someone with better connections. Halston doesn't build people. They use them and discard them. By Monday morning, #HalstonGate was trending in the logistics industry subreddit. But I wasn't finished. That week, I sent a direct proposal to Rockman Medical Freight, a contract worth over $4 million annually. They had been Halston's prize account, one Oliver had been personally managing. I got a call from their CEO within 24 hours. Jim, he said, your proposal's solid. But more than that? We're tired of being treated like line items. We remember who showed up when our ventilators got stuck at the border 2 years ago. You did. The contract transferred by Wednesday. That was the final blow. $13.2 million gone in less than 30 days. Halston's quarterly revenue forecast crumbled. And then the board came knocking. It was 7:53 a.m. on a Thursday when I saw the name flash on my phone. Bexley, Ron. I let it ring. Twice. 3 times. Then I answered, calm as ever. Jim, he said without greeting, we need to talk. Already talking, Ron. He exhaled like it hurt. The board's concerned. There's a lot of noise right now. We think there's a way through this if you're willing to be reasonable. I leaned back in my chair, staring out the window of my new office, top floor of Velocity Freight, downtown Denver, with a direct line of sight into Halston's building across the street. Oh, the poetry. I'm always reasonable, Ron. It's how you kept me around for 10 years while you plotted to replace me. He cleared his throat. That wasn't personal. There it was again. That lie corporate men tell to sleep at night. Here's our offer, he continued. We'll drop all legal threats. Offer you your former role back. I almost hung up. With a 30% salary increase. Plus a seat on the board. I said nothing. Let the silence do the heavy lifting. We're willing to make things right, he added. Publicly, if that's what it takes. And for a split second, I'll admit it, I felt it. The temptation. The full circle victory. The poetic return of the betrayed hero, welcomed back with a crown. All I had to do was forgive and forget. But then I remembered page 7 of Janet's folder. The memo that said, and I quote, "Jim Mercer has developed excessive client dependency. This poses an unacceptable risk to the institution's autonomy." And I remembered the voicemail Oliver accidentally left on my phone the day after I was fired. "We finally got rid of the cowboy. Now we can modernize." I thought of all the nights I left my daughter's piano recitals early to handle emergency calls. All the Sundays I spent on shipping docks solving other people's problems. All the thank yous that meant nothing the minute someone more connected walked in the door. I thought of the people they fired. The ones who stayed silent. The ones who were still scared. And I smiled. "Ron," I said, "here's my counteroffer. Dissolve the company, donate every remaining dollar to employee pensions, and take out a billboard admitting what you did." Silence. Then I hung up. He called back 3 times that morning. Left one voicemail. It ended with, "You're making a mistake." But I wasn't. Because later that day, I got a call from Patricia Heller, a journalist from Business Tribune Weekly. She wanted an exclusive. "People are saying you're the most dangerous man in logistics," she said, half joking. I gave her the truth. All of it. The sabotage. The planned replacement. The personal data used against me. And the growing list of clients who were not buying what Halston was selling anymore. The article dropped the following week. From discarded to dominant, the rise of Jim Mercer and the fall of Halston Freight. It went viral, at least in our world. The final twist? Not the story itself. But what happened next? Because 5 days after the article ran, I got an email from Oliver Dane. Subject line, "Request for meeting." No greeting. Just this. "I was wrong about you. I won't make that mistake again. If there's any way to salvage my future, I'm willing to listen." He had been fired. I confirmed it through an old colleague still inside Halston. The board blamed him for overreach and strategic misjudgment. His father's connections couldn't save him now. I didn't respond. Because some bridges? You don't just burn them. You salt the earth so nothing grows again. Some people think revenge is fire, fast, hot, and destructive. But real justice? Real redemption? It's colder. Slower. It's watching the empire that tried to bury you rot from the inside, while you build something better just across the street. 2 months after Oliver was fired, I got word through the industry grapevine. Halston Freight was seeking acquisition. Not by choice. Out of desperation. Clients were dropping. Their quarterly numbers had cratered. Suppliers were demanding tighter terms. Their once cocky legal team. Quiet. Halston's board had brought in a crisis firm, but it was too late. They'd bet the house on legacy connections, and forgot what actually held the walls up, people like me. By mid-quarter, Eastern Trans Holdings, a massive East Coast conglomerate, bought Halston for pennies on the dollar. The press release used words like strategic restructuring, but we all knew what it meant. They folded. Quietly. Completely. And none of the original executive team survived the transition. Not Ron. Not the other board members. Not Oliver. All gone. The house of cards collapsed on its architects. Meanwhile, Velocity Freight was booming. I didn't just bring in clients, I brought in people. Janet now ran our internal operations division. Cindy, my old assistant, joined our client services team. And we quietly reached out to every laid-off Halston employee who'd ever felt overlooked, stepped on, or silenced. We built a culture on loyalty flowing both ways. One Thursday afternoon, I was walking the floor of our new logistics hub, built on the old distribution lot Halston had sold off 3 years earlier. Someone called out from across the warehouse. "Jim! Truck 3 just cleared customs, we're green across the board." I gave a thumbs up and kept walking. As I passed through the break room, I saw something that made me stop. A photo. Taped to the corkboard. It was from one of our first big team meetings. Janet had printed it out. Written across the top in black marker. Built. Not bought. I stared at it for a long moment. Because that was the difference, wasn't it? Halston bought connections. Hired bloodlines. Played politics. We built trust. Earned loyalty. Showed up. And when the storm hit, they drowned in their own lies. We stood stronger than ever. One day I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "You were right. OD. No apology. No excuses. Just surrender." I tossed it in the shredder. Not out of spite. Because it didn't matter anymore. I wasn't chasing revenge. I was leading something better. Something honest. In the end, truth has a way of surfacing, even if it comes twisted through pain and betrayal. As one wise voice once said, sometimes your greatest enemy was once your closest ally. If this story struck a chord with you, let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, share, and spread the word, because justice deserves to be heard.